You've probably sent a gazillion job applications. You've made sure that your CV is shiny and polished and ready to go. Your cover letter has been tailored to as much as tailoring can be done, and still you don't get anything come back. Now, you'd be happy to know that actually this has got nothing to do with your work ethic. If anything, it's due to the invisible walls that have been created that are slowing down this process. So in today's video, I want to talk about some of those invisible walls and why this is becoming more difficult. In addition, I'll talk about how you can actually start thinking about ways in which you can improve your opportunities. Now, of course, I spoke about CVs and cover letters and all those different types of things there. But if you feel like actually listening to what I just said, your CV is not up to scratch, then feel free to download my CV template, ATS friendly, which has helped me secure contracts in this current climate. Now, I've spoken about this before. The problem isn't always you. Now, of course, if you haven't done some of those stuff, then at least try that stuff because some people are getting success. But the system has changed. And so there is a disparity between what the market wants and what you're showing in your CV. There's a disparity in terms of how hiring was done before and how hiring is being done now. Now, whether you think technology and more particularly AI is creating some form of inflation in terms of demand is irrespective of the fact that it is definitely reshaping the way organizations and end clients do things, the way they recruit, the sort of jobs that they're looking for, the demand and supply in relation to this stuff. And so if you aren't necessarily hitting the bill when it comes to these different types of roles that are in demand, then it becomes even more challenging. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Michael Tabirade, and I help ambitious professionals like yourself navigate through the change in this world in order for them to create a flourishing portfolio career that they build. So if you want to see more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video so it can pop up in your feed more. Now, coming back to that, a McKinsey report back in 2024 and also the World Economic Forum report in terms of jobs globally highlights the fact that actually there are certain skills in demand where actually workers can't fill that gap at the moment. Now, this isn't always the case, okay? Sometimes you're applying for roles, not even sometimes, many times you're applying for roles that you can do and have done before, and yet you're still getting rejections. And so there is something to be said about technology and AI, but there is also something being said around actually getting callbacks, etc., etc. Now, first I want to tackle the situation when it comes to applying for jobs that you think you can do. Now, the reality is there has been a change in the political climate when it comes to our governments, whether you're left-leaning or right-leaning, etc., etc. And many countries for many years have been playing the game of, can I get money from X investor? An investor could be an insurance company, a hedge fund, etc., etc., in order to pay for things for our country. Things like infrastructure, roads, innovation projects, etc., etc. However, this money has, in some cases, or in many cases, been mismanaged and not utilized effectively to get the return on investments that were initially planned for. And so what ends up happening is we get these loans, okay, in the form of bonds, and essentially we have to pay these bonds back over a period of 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Of course, the pandemic happened and this accelerated the need for these bonds to come through in terms of aid. But what this has meant is that the amount of revenue coming into the country, the GDP, so to speak, does not necessarily help cover the cost in terms of what needs to be paid back. So essentially, we're paying back interest on these bonds, which means we start to get into a debt doom loop. And so what the governments may do is essentially raise taxes in innovative and amazing new ways in order to fund some of the initiatives and or debt payments for this country or this country has. So for example, the UK particularly, back last year, I think it was the autumn budget, I want to say, or maybe it was the spring budget, I don't remember. There was the decision to ensure that minimum wage was increased to, I think it was £12.71. In addition to that, the employees' national insurance was increased from 13.8% to 15%. If I got those figures wrong, please excuse me, and you can check them out for yourself as well. So really, this meant not just for big global businesses, but for small businesses and medium enterprises, this meant that actually there was an increase in the amount that they need to pay when it came to their expenses, i.e. labor, etc., etc. And so what's happened is some of these businesses have gone bust. They can't afford it. Number two, some of these businesses can't afford to have these individuals anymore. Number 3, there is more recruitment overseas, and you can see there are more innovative ways to bring on those people, whether this is hybrid, remote, or through schemes. Number 4, there's been a rise in leveraging, automation. And so with that in mind, the pool of jobs becomes smaller. I think in a previous video, I reported that in the previous 12 months in August, there were 164,000 less jobs. And actually, if you see the distribution of jobs available across different industries within the UK, public sector, education, finance and insurance, art, and I think there is another one. I think it's around digital and IT and admin and support. Those have gained roles, and every other industry has lost roles. And there are quite a few industries. There is high unemployment. So I don't know what the unemployment figures are right now, but there's been an increase in unemployment. I think previous months was at 4.7% previous to 4.2 or 4.3%. And so you can see how these policies and the mismanagement and these black swan events happen that trigger these events, these economic factors. So that's just one version of the story. Again, the pool of jobs is less, and actually there is an increase in a niche set of roles. But of course, depending on what industry you're in, actually you may be seeing more roles, and actually you don't really feel as affected unless there are increases in competition for job seekers applying for those specific roles. So everything's affecting everything else. The second thing I want to tackle is talking about tech. Now, there's 2 main problems that I need to address. Number 1, there is the rapid tech acceleration. In many ways, what that means is many roles are becoming obsolete. Now, I'm not talking about your plumbers, your arts and crafts, that like the really sort of hands-on individuals. If anything, they're going to make more money in some way, shape or form because less people are skilled within those areas. And there is more demand for these things, especially if we're building infrastructure that relies on this stuff. Tech doesn't change that necessarily. It may just change the way in which they engineer or approach different things or manage the management admin side of things. The second problem is the digital skills mandate. Whether you like it or not, every role now is tech. I'm sure you've probably seen on LinkedIn, and some person you know who has no business being in tech says they're in tech. Apparently, I'm in tech, okay? Now, I kind of get it, but I never put myself in that position. Because I deal with digital transformation, that puts me in tech. I mean, some would argue differently. I'm not complaining either way. The point being made is that we're all in tech in some way, shape or form. So it's a different way of thinking. The other thing I want to highlight is that the pandemic changed a lot. And what I mean by this is it really introduced this idea of remote working and hybrid working, and actually changed the behaviors and or conditions in which a job seeker and or employee thinks about working. And so because of this, you've got people who are, number 1, wanting only those types of roles because they're thinking about saving money because of all the stuff that's happening with the taxes that I mentioned before. But number 2, they're also thinking about how they can be in an environment where it is positive and conducive to their mental health positively. But now what we're seeing is there are some end clients or organizations that are going bullish with saying it has to be hybrid. We don't do remote at all, etc., etc. And actually, there are some others who are not really changing their stance on the whole remote working thing. And so you've got a bit of disparity. You've got people who are like, I'm not willing to do this stuff. And in some instances, the next person who is desperate or more willing is more likely going to get that role. But sometimes that isn't even the case. What we're seeing is individuals who have to have the exact experience, the exact. And so it's almost like there is no room for growth or development, etc., etc. You need to be a niche expert within X field, or at least communicate that. So there is a gap between what organizations want, given the current conditions, and what's being communicated on our CVs and supporting statements and cover letters. And so that's going to take time to catch up to. So we're not only dealing with competing factors and an increase in number of people applying for roles because the unemployment rate has gone up based on the factors that I spoke about before, but we're also talking about how congruent our CV and cover letter is in relation to the roles that we're applying for. Bearing in mind, they all have to be now tailored to these different roles. And I think a fourth thing to note is there is increase and high pressure on recruiting agencies and recruiters to still have a relationship with job seekers and keep them up to date and highlight what jobs are available, etc., etc. And so what you're seeing now is there are engagement style type people that are popping up within these recruitment agencies. And that's their sole role because they're realizing, actually, I can't keep up with this anymore. We need someone or some people who can be the liaison and communicate with these individuals. Now, if you stay in this situation, again, it just becomes difficult. There's emotional burnout, so to speak. There's a professional cost as well in terms of stagnation and feeling a certain way. And there's also going to be a financial cost because you may not necessarily make the gains that you want to make. So this becomes a frustration. This becomes oh my gosh, why is this happening? There are people who, again, I've got no statistics on this right now off the top of my head, but there are people who are spending at least double the amount of time job seeking relative to what they did previously. Of course, as time goes on, you either get more motivated or less motivated. And I'm sure the majority of people are becoming less motivated. It's difficult to have that fight, that will, that grit. So you end up doing different things and actually saying, let me rely on the government potentially. And this is where there is more pressure on the system. More pressure is developed. Now, I will never say there is a silver bullet to this, but there are some things that we can think about to maybe better position ourselves. I've spoke about PAR before, and I'm not going to speak about it again, but essentially, what I'm saying for those of you who are new to this channel is be clear about the strategic problem you're solving, be clear about the actions you take aligned to a methodology that they recognize, and also be clear about the results that you've produced in terms of benefits. So money made, saved, and or processes improved or customer service satisfaction. So there's that. There's all of that stuff to think about just in general to help you think about your CV better. But also you need to be thinking about how can I change myself from seeing, do I fit this job description for a specific job you're looking for, to what problems can I help solve that my transferable skills communicate? What problem can I help them solve? And if you can't see the problem, move on. You need to be able to communicate that well. And that communication is defined through the experiences that you've had. Because if you think you can solve it and the evidence on your CV positions you that way, then you're going to have a better time. And so there's a mindset shift there that needs to happen. So speaking on that mindset element a bit more, a job seeker is going to be a bit more reactive. They're going to be thinking more about the fact that they fit into a box and they hope to be chosen, so to speak. Whereas a strategist is more thinking about what problems they can solve. In addition to, they are creating the opportunities is a bit different because they've been able to create value previously before. And so this may look like not just looking at the job, but speaking to the individuals. I know some of you are doing this already, so I don't want to just be on some soapbox or whatever it may be. I know some of you aren't, and you've either done it once and it's not enough. We've done it a couple of times. This needs to be relentless. This is the market we're in right now. It has to be that way, that it can't be anything else. So for those of you who are doing it already, soldier on. For those of you who are you can't kind of do it. You need to do it. For those of you not doing it, you need to get on it because you need to be absolutely confident that you can do that role. And of course, there is an element of stretching that's involved in terms of applying for jobs. That's going to be hit and miss, especially more so within this job market. So the first thing is to think more like a strategist as opposed to a job seeker. So going based on this whole strategist thing, how do you do this? Well, first of all, you need to understand the landscape. And the landscape being yourself, and also the job market. What do I mean? Obviously, audit your skills. Be clear about what that looks like. Extract the information. So for example, for me, I definitely have skills when it comes to governance, risk management, delivery management, leadership or team leadership, whatever it may be. All of these different things. And so these are a subset of skills that I have that I know are quite useful in terms of what I do within my space. And so because I understand this stuff, I know what makes me valuable because I'm not just saying these skills. I have evidence to support that actually I have these skills. I have evidence to show it. So I'm not going to be confused in that sense. So be clear about what strengths you have, what weaknesses you may have, but that will be defined later on. The second thing is to understand the job market. So one quick way is to look through all of the jobs that exist, understand what relates to the skills that you have. So you're going to have things that are a perfect match. You're going to have things that are kind of a match. You're going to have things that are kind of a risk. And so the ones that are a match, you need to understand if there's demand for that based on the numbers that exist on different job boards. The ones that are kind of a match, you need to be clear about what those job titles are, okay, and kind of list them. And the ones that are kind of a stretch, they're going to be hit and miss. It really comes down to your appetite and what you're willing to do. So you've got that. The other thing you could do is look at things like the World Economic Forum, look at your country. So in this instance, the UK, look at their report, their 2025 report, and see what skills are in demand right now and see if that relates to the current skills that you have in terms of your strengths. Number 3, what you could also do is see how the money's been invested in terms of your country. So you could look at the ONS data as an example. So the Office for National Statistics, look at the employment data and see whether your industry fits in. So if you are more within finance or tech or public sector or education, all the ones that I mentioned before, tick. If you're not, okay, is it time for a pivot? Do you need to be more of a process person rather than a niche expertise person? And so when you've got all of this information, this helps you make a sensible decision in terms of what you do. Because now it's about thinking about who can help me or where can I find the information to ensure that I have the highest opportunity of being successful. So the next step is making sure you want to reach your potential in the right way. And so in order for you to do that, you need to translate what you've learned in the previous bit onto your CV and LinkedIn profile. So again, if you've understood that the market wants a certain type of person for this industry and you know you've got these skills, shape it to that if it makes sense for what you're looking to do. Shape it. And so the way you want to talk is, again, maybe on your CV, and I've done this for some individuals, is highlight the strategic problem you solved in 1 or 2 sentences. Have anywhere between 4 to 6 bullet points of the actual things that you did do, and then have a line or 2 centered around what sort of benefits you realized. Maybe you save cost by 50% by removing, paper management that cost £1.50 to text messages or WhatsApp messages, which now cost 75p. So you want to highlight that. It's very specific, it's very tangible, it can be measured. So you want to do this stuff. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you actually speak to recruiters, contractors, people in your roles, etc., and understand what the market is saying. Understand what the opportunities are out there, because that initial analysis will help you understand what you need to do. So speaking to them, it's not just getting information, but it's forming a relationship, because the more you speak to people, the more they bring in potential opportunities. They may think about it, they may not think about it, they may say it straight away. The point I'm trying to make is that you want to become familiar to these individuals. And actually ask them at the end, who do you know that you think would be useful or helpful towards my cause right now? They will tell you, and then you set up a meeting with them and you just keep on going. So having conversations with people is going to be fundamental, especially the right people. You could probably check out a whole list of recruiters. I think I've got a resource for this. It may be below. If not, potentially let me know, and then see if I can provide the link. But you want to basically target recruitment agencies that essentially specialize within your area. Again, it's not silver bullet. These are just all ways in which you can increase your potential. Of course, there's going to be roles on LinkedIn. You want to make sure you sign up for alerts, okay, for the right keywords. Same thing with other job boards. You have to be relentless. This has to be your hobby. This has to be your side hustle. If this is the thing that you're looking to do, because if you don't have the core income coming in, and if you don't do something that aligns to something you're good at or you enjoy or whatever it may be, it's going to be a long day for you, because it's just going to be a long day. So once you've understood the situation and you're reaching to different people and improving your CV and all that kind of stuff there, you want to expand your opportunities in a sense that, number 1, continue to learn, brush up on skills that you don't have. This needs to be reflected in your acumen. Sometimes learning is about relearning what you did before, or learning about the structural way in which things are done based on your industry or your role, or understanding a certain organization that you were previously at before or you're wanting to move to, so that this is clearly articulated in your lingo when you're speaking to people or producing your CV and or portfolio. The other thing you want to do is to make sure that you have to be really clear of what you have to offer. And so, yes, there may be other opportunities to do side hustles or et cetera, but side hustles take a while. I know you're seeing these influencers saying, oh, well, all I did was this, but they followed the steps and had the right market and information in such a way that it hit. Whether that was conscious or not is separate. But you can't just rely on a side hustle. You rely more on a side hustle when it becomes more of your main hustle. And actually, you're seeing signs that it's working. So you may want to start something, but you do want to brush up on skills. Maybe you do volunteering. Maybe you do non-executive director stuff. Maybe you do trustee stuff. Maybe you do some mentorship or coaching. whether you are being the mentor or coach or you're being menteed and coached. So there are various different things in which you can do, but don't stay stagnant. Learn, 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 and execute. Now, of course, again, some of you are doing variations of this stuff, but this was never going to be a one-size-fits-all or a silver bullet, but this is just a way to either remind you or to tell you this is a way in which you can do it. There are people saying, oh, you can use this AI tool X, Y, and Z. Yeah, use those AI tools if you want to, noting that that may not necessarily save you completely because everyone is doing it. So it's almost like, how do you stand out? What can you do differently? AI is quite predictable in terms of how it talks and what it says. So because we're seeing the same polished thing all the time, you're not sensing the humanization and the character of the individual. So there is an element of humanization that needs to exist. Now, of course, I don't say don't use AI. I'm a huge avid user of AI. The human touch cannot be denied. And I think people are recognizing this because there is a bit of AI fatigue, although AI is a useful tool in the right hands and done in the right way. So nuance is key when it comes to this stuff. Like I said before, if you feel like your CV is not good enough, then feel free to click the link in my description to download my CV template that has helped me secure contracts in previous years. Now, typically I like to talk about the next video, but in this instance, I'm not necessarily going to do that because I'm going to start doing daily videos again, or at least close to it. I don't know if this is a challenge or whether this is for a longer period of time or short period of time. I'm just going to see where it takes me. So stay tuned. That will be happening a couple of days after this video is published. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. If you like videos like this, centered around contracting, portfolio careers, etc., don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.